And something that I'm so curious about with your story and your journey is the fact that you made over 50 million euro before the age of 30. And that is something that to me is, I mean, it's super inspiring, but I'm also interested in hearing like how that affected your relationship to money. And I've also heard you talk in other interviews about the fact that you were quite conditioned to believe that money would give you happiness. And so I'm wondering like what happened in that, like the transition when you all of a sudden made a lot of money, like a huge amount of money. How did that affect you and your relationship to money?
So growing up, I was a pretty lonely child, and I didn't have many friends. And I had this feeling that if I only had money, I would be happy. And that played an important role for all of my teenage years, and it played an important role in me starting a business. And at age 28, we finally made it really big. We took our company to the stock exchange, and in that day alone, I made about 15 million euros selling shares on my 28th birthday. And that day was the day where I reached all my goals, and I was super happy. I walked around and was smiling with my whole body. I was dancing and giggling, and I had accomplished all of these things. And then 2 weeks later, I woke up and I didn't really want to get out of bed. I felt like I was a bit sick. My relationship was not in a very good place. I had neglected my health, and I realized that, okay, I'm not happy anymore. Now I have all of these things, and I've always said, when I reach there, I will be happy. Now I couldn't say that anymore because I had already reached there and I wasn't happy. Then now was my excuse for not being happy. What am I going to blame it on? And somewhere there, I realized, okay, money is not this universal pill for happiness. It can solve a lot of problems. Money definitely helps to be happy, but it doesn't fix all the problems. So it's a big shift came there, and me realizing that, okay, money is not going to change everything. And then I started involving myself in different charity projects. And I went to Africa on a trip, and I visited a school there. And I sat in the afternoon talking to Torsten, the man behind this school, and he told me about how in this school, the kids never got beaten up. And when I heard that, he was like, of course they're not getting beaten up. And then it kind of hit me like, okay, here this is a big deal. In all the other schools, the kids got beaten up. And here the kids were safe and they were happy. And that became a big shift for me in money as well. I realized, okay, money can actually be used to create safety for kids. And then money got a completely new meaning for me, that before money was about what can I get for me? How can I change things for me? And here it was like, wow, money can do so much for someone else. And there isn't an upper limit to the number of people you can impact. So there was another big shift in what money could mean for me. When money went from what can money do for me to what can money do for others. And then there was a third big shift that happened. And it happened after a friend of mine came over for dinner. And this is a very dark story, just as a heads up. But he had just come back from India, where he had been helping an organization there who worked with child sex slavery, like the worst possible conditions you can imagine. 5-year-olds being locked up and raped on a daily basis, like most horrific thing you can imagine. And he told me these horror stories that he had heard and that he'd seen in some extent. And I remember when he left that evening, and I was so touched by everything he had said, and I felt like I have one option here, or two options here. Either I dedicate my full life into helping children that for no fault of their own is living through life on hell. That could have been me if I was just unlucky.
Mm.
Or I could push all of these pictures that he has put in my mind away, pretend they never happened, and just move on with my life. And I'm ashamed to say that I went with the latter. I pushed all of these things away. I didn't do anything. I tried not to think about this. And it took me a few days, and then I wasn't really thinking about it. And then 6 months later or so, I stumbled on an article from this organization that I had written. And it was a story about a girl that they had saved and the life that she had, hell that she's been going through, and what she was getting the opportunities of doing now. And at the end of it, it said that to save a girl from this hell costs $800.
Mm.
And that number just stuck with me, like $800. That was less than the price of the phone I was holding in my hand.
Mm.
And that was the price of rescuing someone from hell on earth. And up until that time, I had been comparing money to my bank account. Like how much money I have in bank account, as long as that doesn't change a lot, it doesn't really matter what I buy. I can buy anything because it doesn't really impact the numbers on my bank account. And now suddenly I put money in perspective to a child's life and saving someone from hell. And then suddenly there isn't a way to buy anything unnecessary without thinking twice.
Mm.
And in some ways, I wish I didn't have that experience, because I still struggle to buy expensive things for myself. And I very rarely do these days, because I have this mindset like, okay, what else could this money mean?
Mm.
Like, what else can I do with money? So today I have a mindset where pretty much all the money that I spend either go on donations or in some way making me to create things that can change the world later on.
Mm.
And sure, I still buy somewhat expensive clothes. I still buy things for myself, but by far my vast majority goes to these kinds of expenses, hard word.
Mm.
And it comes from all of these things. It's been a journey through different stages of how my relationship to money has changed.
Mm. Wow. Thank you for sharing. That's so beautiful, and yeah, such a huge impact that money can have, and that you're creating. Um, I'm thinking about, like, because you were mentioning the fact that you, like, on your 28th birthday, that you kind of achieved, like, every goal that you've had in your life, in one single day. How did that impact you, and like how did you move on from that day? Like, did that give you a sense of, like, feeling empty, or like how did that touch you?
Yeah, I think I lost motivation in many ways. I didn't really know what else to do.
Mm.
And I think that's very common. Like, you have this goal, and desire is usually a much stronger feeling than achievement. Like, your feeling of wanting something is usually a much stronger emotion than the feeling of actually getting it.
Mm.
Actually getting it doesn't usually last very long. And suddenly desire is gone. So desire is usually what drives motivation, actually getting us to do things. So I would definitely had a couple of years there when I was lost, and a big change came with this trip to Africa, and realizing that, okay, there is a new meaning of money. There is a new purpose of things. That kind of motivation came back from,
Mm.
instead of me wanting to have as much money as possible for myself, now me wanting the world to be a better place. That's a much bigger goal. It's
Mm.
somewhat easy to accomplish financial freedom for yourself. It's not easy to fix climate change. That's a bigger challenge. I still have something to do there.
Mm. Yeah, so you get new goals.
I got new goals. It took some time to find them. I got new
Yeah.
goals.